What if I told you that gut feeling you get on a bad date isn't just you being overly critical? What if it's actually your brain flagging something that science has proven is a massive deal breaker? We're about to get into the fascinating research behind those feelings, turning your intuition into a finely tuned instrument for finding a good partner. This isn't about finding someone perfect, because nobody is perfect. This is about understanding the warning signs that can save you a world of heartache down the line. It's about building a relationship that's not just exciting in the beginning, but is also stable, supportive, and mutual in the long run.
You know the feeling. You're sitting across the table from someone who, on paper, seems fantastic. They're charming, they've got a great job, maybe they're even really attractive. Your friends would probably love them. But as they're talking, there's this little alarm bell ringing faintly in the back of your mind. It's a tiny, nagging feeling you can't quite put your finger on. You try to ignore it, telling yourself you're just nervous or you're looking for problems, but the feeling persists. It's that sinking sensation in your stomach, that little voice whispering that something here is just definitely not right. We've all been there, and it's one of the most confusing parts of dating.
Well, here's the good news. You are not crazy. You're not being too picky, and you're not imagining things. That feeling is very, very real, and your intuition is picking up on something important. It's not just a random vibe. It's your brain's incredible pattern recognition system working overtime, scanning for signals that you've learned either through your own experience or the experiences of others could lead to trouble. Believe it or not, science has taken this seriously and has actually studied this exact phenomenon. They wanted to know if there's a real basis for these gut feelings, and it turns out there is.
The official term that researchers use for this is a relational red flag. It's a pretty straightforward name, but let's really think about what it means. Imagine you're driving your car. A red flag is like that little warning light that suddenly flashes on your dashboard. The car might still be running fine, but that light is a clear signal, a warning that there's an underlying issue that could cause serious problems if you ignore it. In dating, a red flag is the exact same thing. It's a sign, a piece of behavior, a comment, or an attitude that signals a potentially undesirable quality in a romantic partner. It's a warning that this person might not be capable of providing the kind of healthy, respectful, and stable relationship you're looking for.
Now, this isn't just some abstract idea or a term from a self-help book. Real science has been done here. To figure out what these warning signs actually are in the real world, a significant study was conducted in 2016. Researchers didn't just guess, they went directly to the source. They surveyed hundreds of regular people, just like you and me, who are actively dating. They asked them a simple but powerful question. What are the deal breakers you've encountered? What are the red flags that have made you decide not to pursue a relationship with someone? They wanted to build a map of the dating danger zones based on real-life experiences.
The response was overwhelming. The researchers were flooded with thousands upon thousands of individual answers. People shared stories about everything from bad manners to genuinely scary behavior. It was a massive data dump of modern dating experiences. The next challenge was to make sense of it all. The research team painstakingly sorted through every single response, looking for common themes and recurring patterns. After all that analysis, they were able to group all of those thousands of specific red flags into 9 distinct major categories. These 9 categories represent the main areas where things tend to go wrong. So let's break them down.
And here they are, the 9 big buckets that almost every dating red flag falls into. As you can see, they cover a really wide range of issues. On one end of the spectrum, you have extremely serious things like deviant behavior, which includes abusive or criminal actions. Then you have flags that are more about core character, like lacks compassion. Some are about compatibility, like lacks similarities. And others are more practical, like issues with family and friends or a lack of stability. They even cover how a person navigates the dating process itself, like pushing for immediate intimacy or being hung up on romantic others. We're going to dive deeper into a few of these.
So let's start with the heavy hitters, the ones that often signal the deepest problems. First up, deviant behavior. This is a clinical-sounding term, but it covers behavior that is genuinely alarming. This isn't just about quirks, it's about serious, fundamental issues. This could be a dependency on drugs or alcohol that makes them unreliable and erratic, or it could be a controlling nature where they try to dictate who you can see or what you can do. It's any behavior that feels fundamentally unsafe or unstable. Next is lacks compassionate features. This one gets to the very core of a person's character. It's about a fundamental lack of empathy. Are they selfish, always putting their needs first? Are they rude to people they see as below them, like a waiter or a cashier? Do they lie easily and without remorse? This is a huge red flag because compassion is the bedrock of a kind and supportive partnership. And then we have lack similarities. This one might seem less dramatic, but it's often the silent relationship killer. This is when you realize your core values are on completely different planets. You believe in planning for the future, they live entirely in the moment with no regard for consequences. You value open communication, they avoid difficult conversations at all costs. Over time, this fundamental mismatch can create a massive chasm between two people.
Now, let's look at some flags that are more about practicality and how a person operates in a relationship. First, immediate intimacy. This one can feel really strange and off-putting.
It's when someone tries to rush the natural progression of a relationship. They might be pushing for physical intimacy way too fast, making you feel pressured and uncomfortable. Or, on the other end, they might start talking about marriage and moving in together on the first or second date. This often signals that they aren't interested in getting to know the real you. They're just trying to fast forward into a relationship to fill a void in their own life. Next up, romantic others. This one is a big sign of disrespect and emotional unavailability. It's when the person you're on a date with can't seem to let go of their past. They might constantly bring up their ex, whether it's to praise them or complain about them, it doesn't matter. The point is, their ex is a third person on your date. Or even worse, they might be actively flirting with other people right in front of you. It's a clear signal they aren't fully present and ready for a new, committed connection. Finally, there's the practical issue of lacks financial stability. Now, let's be clear, this is not about needing a partner to be wealthy. This is about being a functional adult. Can this person hold down a job? Are they responsible with their money? Or are they in constant financial crisis? A chronic inability to support themselves often points to deeper issues with responsibility, maturity, and stability that will inevitably spill over and affect the relationship.
Okay, so we have these 9 big categories. They're all useful for understanding what can go wrong. But this brings us to a really critical question. Are all of these flags created equal? I mean, is someone having bad table manners, which falls under violated norms, really on the same level as someone who is controlling and abusive? Of course not. Some red flags are annoyances, while others are full-blown 5-alarm fires. So, the researchers wanted to know, what do people really consider the biggest deal breakers? Which flags are the ones that make people say, absolutely not, this is over?
To figure this out, the scientists went a step further in their research. They didn't just ask people to list the red flags they'd seen, they asked them to rate the severity of each one they had personally experienced. They used a simple rating scale, from 1 to 5, where 1 meant it was a minor issue, and 5 meant it was an absolute, immediate deal breaker. This allowed them to quantify the impact of each type of red flag. They weren't just looking at what happens, but how much it matters to people when it does. And this is where the findings get incredibly clear and powerful.
And the results were not even a little bit ambiguous. The data came back, and it was crystal clear. As you can see from this chart, one category absolutely dwarfed all the others in terms of how seriously people took it. Deviant behavior received an average severity score of 4.13 out of 5. That is a massive number. It was significantly higher than the next most severe categories, which were lacks compassion at 3.75 and romantic others at 3.62. This tells us something incredibly important about what people prioritize when selecting a partner. Above all else, people are looking for safety, stability, and good character. So let's zoom in even further. We know that deviant behavior is the most severe category overall, but what does that actually mean in practice? That category includes a range of different behaviors. The researchers wanted to know if there were specific actions within that group that were the true top-tier deal breakers. So they analyzed the ratings for the individual flags within that category, and they found that 3 specific things consistently stood out as the absolute worst of the worst. These are the red flags that people rated as the most severe you could possibly encounter on a date.
And here it is, the single #1 biggest deal breaker from the entire study. With a staggering severity rating of 4.39 out of 5, the most serious red flag a person could display was drug use or dependency. This was rated as more of a deal breaker than anything else, and it makes sense when you think about it. A serious dependency issue brings with it a world of chaos, unreliability, and potential danger. It fundamentally undermines the trust and stability that are necessary for a healthy partnership. For most people, this wasn't just a red flag, it was a stop sign.
Right behind drug dependency, also rated as extremely severe, were 2 other major issues. The first was having a criminal history. Again, this points to a fundamental lack of stability and an inability or unwillingness to live within societal norms, which is a scary prospect for a potential partner. The second was any form of violent or abusive behavior. And it's important to note this includes not just physical violence, but also emotional, verbal, and psychological abuse. Things like being controlling, intensely jealous, or constantly putting you down were seen as incredibly severe. Together, these 3 things, drug dependency, criminality, and abuse, form the trifecta of absolute, non-negotiable deal breakers.
Now, you might be listening to this and thinking, okay, that all sounds terrible, but surely those kinds of extreme behaviors are rare. You might hope that you'd never actually encounter something like that in your own dating life. But here is where the study delivers a truly sobering reality check. A massive 66%, that is 2 out of every 3 people who participated in this study, reported that they had personally experienced a red flag from that most severe deviant behavior category. Let that sink in. These are not rare, isolated incidents. They are a common, unfortunate feature of the modern dating landscape. And that is precisely why being able to spot these signs early is not just helpful, it's absolutely crucial for your own well-being.
Okay, so let's walk through a scenario. You're on a date, or maybe you've been seeing someone for a few weeks, and you spot a red flag. Maybe it's one of the really big, scary ones we just talked about, or maybe it's a smaller one that just confirms your gut feeling that this isn't right. You've made the decision in your mind, this is not going any further. What's the next step? What do people actually do when they decide it's time to end things? The study looked into this as well.
The research found that when faced with this situation, people's reactions tend to fall into one of three main strategies. The first is the direct approach. This is when you handle it with honesty and clarity. You might say something like, "I've really enjoyed getting to know you, but I don't think we're a match, and I don't see a future for us." It can be difficult and uncomfortable, but it's clear and respectful. The second strategy is providing excuses. This is the path of conflict avoidance. Instead of stating the real reason, you might say you're just too busy with work right now, or that you're not really ready to date. You're trying to soften the blow and avoid an awkward conversation. And then there's the third, and perhaps most infamous strategy, ghosting. This is when you simply disappear. You stop answering texts, you don't pick up calls, you cease all communication without any explanation at all. You just vanish from their life. As you can probably guess, ghosting is incredibly common, but it's also widely disliked. The study included direct quotes from participants to add a human element to the data, and this one about ghosting really captures the general feeling. One person said, "I think that's crazy. I don't like it. I think that you should afford the respect to tell that person that you're not interested anymore." And that sentiment really resonates with a lot of people. It highlights the core issue with ghosting. While it might be the easiest exit for the person doing it, it often feels deeply confusing and disrespectful to the person who gets left in silence with no closure and no explanation.
So after looking at all this data, the categories, the severity ratings, the ways people react, what is the big overarching lesson here? What is the key takeaway? It's this. A red flag isn't just a bad quality in someone else. It's a deeply personal signal. It's an indicator of incompatibility. When you spot a red flag, it's your internal guidance system telling you that your own needs, your own expectations, and your own core values are not being met by this person. Someone who is very laid back might not see a lack of ambition as a red flag, but for someone who is highly driven, it's a massive one. It's not about them being a bad person, necessarily. It's about them being the wrong person for you.
And here's another really fascinating and hopeful point that came out of the research. Your red flag detector isn't static. It's not set in stone for your whole life. The things that you consider to be deal breakers can, and likely will, change over time. Think about it. The qualities you looked for in a partner when you were 18 are probably very different from what you look for at 28 or 38. As you go through life, you have more experiences, you learn more about yourself, and you get clearer on what you truly want and need. Your values evolve. And as your values evolve, your internal list of red flags gets updated. It becomes more refined, more accurate, and more attuned to what will actually make you happy.
And that brings us to the final, and I think the most powerful question of all. We've spent all this time talking about how to spot red flags in other people, how to analyze their behavior and protect ourselves, and that is incredibly important. But maybe the real power of understanding red flags isn't just about judging potential partners. Maybe the most crucial question we can ask ourselves is this: what do the red flags I consistently notice in others actually reveal about me? What do they teach me about my own non-negotiables, my boundaries, my past wounds, and what I truly need to feel safe, respected, and happy in a relationship? Answering that might be the most important step of all. If this got you thinking, make sure you subscribe for more insights into the science of relationships.